Before we go out into the field, you want to make sure that you have your proper attire just to stay safe and comfortable. One way we suggest that is by bringing out some mud boots. Mud boots, they can protect you from insects, so they can protect you from the vegetation. Also, we're going to be going through a lot of creek crossings and bottomlands. If you don't have mud boots, you can wear normal hiking shoes as well, or boots. Just be prepared that you might get a little wet. Also, make sure to bring some long pants because shorts are going to be considered inappropriate. We're going to be going through some thorny stuff. And for shirts, you can wear just a normal t-shirt, or if you're maybe cautious about poison ivy exposure or all the bushy, thorny things that we're going to be going through, you can bring along a long sleeve shirt as well. Also, you can bring some gloves if you are sensitive to poison ivy, because we will be experiencing that in the field. Since this is Texas, you will want to bring a pair of sunglasses and maybe your own personal hat to stay cool in the sun. Now for some gear that you actually will need as well, we're actually going to be providing a few things. We're going to be providing the keys to all the locks, and the tackle box will be shared as well. It'll have the SD cards in here, or at least the fresh ones, and then you'll give back the tackle box with the filled SD cards. Also, we have some batteries. You don't need to provide your own batteries. We have plenty enough for the entire field season, so we'll be giving those as well. So there are a few items that I'll actually bring in my field pack, and these have to do with vegetation primarily. Don't worry about it yourself, but I'm going to bring along some shears, a folding saw, and my own personal multi-purpose tool to deal with the vegetation that may be in the view of the camera. Also, as another reminder, you probably want to bring a cell phone. If you don't have a cell phone, I'll probably be there with you and have one as well. This helps record time because it's off of a satellite rather than your own setting your watches. I highly suggest that you bring along some bug spray because we are going to be dealing with bottomlands, and also some sunscreen as well. You want to stay hydrated throughout the entire field time, so bring lots of water as well. The last thing that you'll need is a pack. Now this is my personal field pack, but you want to bring your own just to carry your own personal items. Alright, so some of you might come out with me in actually deploying these cameras, and there are certain tree aspects that I look for when I try to place these cameras out onto the trails. Pretty much you'll be looking for a few characteristics. You want to look for a tree that's not too far and yet not too close to the trail. This is within a good range. It's a little close, but ideally I go for about 2 to 4 meters away from my trail that I've selected. But this will still actually work. And in this location, I actually have 2 trees to choose between. But why would I pick one tree over the other? And that would predominantly comes from the tree characteristics itself. This tree has a smoother bark that actually will allow the camera to lay more flat against it, and it also grows straight. Pretty much you don't want a tree that leans forward or leans back because that'll add a tilt to the camera, and then you have to modify that by adding extra sticks and stuff. This smaller tree, it might seem nice, but actually it's a little too small because the security box itself actually is wider than the tree's trunk, which will result in the security box, if it's pretty heavy, will actually tilt side to side, and you have to add more stability onto it by adding more sticks. Also, this bark from this tree is really rough. It has a lot of grooves on it, and it sticks out quite a bit. This will also add extra tilt to the camera unit as well. Another feature that I like to look for is an unobstructed viewpoint towards the trail that I'm targeting. Now, I might not think too much about it, but like this little tuft of grass here on the ground, it actually can obstruct the view because we're looking for, keep in mind, creatures that are around my knee height or lower to the ground. And this little tuft of grass could cut off most of its legs or a portion of its belly that I'm trying to actually view. Also, it moves in the wind, and these cameras are motion and heat detected. So whenever the heat of the sun heats the blades up of the grass and they sway in the wind, it'll trigger the camera even more, resulting in battery usage and means I have to change out the batteries a lot more often. Pretty much when I locate the camera, I'll walk up to it from an angle and then usually kick my foot out just to trigger it. And then I'll record that trigger time. And immediately afterwards, I go into unlocking the camera unit by the appropriate key that's actually color-coded on the lock. And then I'll open the front of the security box by swinging it open. And then on the side, you'll see that there are these latches that actually, if you unsnap them, they will open the camera face, and that exposes the actual camera units and the buttons. Pretty much immediately I'll turn it off, and then I'll turn it back on to actually record the battery life. Alright, so when you're going to check the battery life, it'll come up on this little screen right here. And you're going to record that value. If the value is under 25%, I'd suggest that you actually change out the batteries. How to access the battery is from underneath the camera unit, and in the front portion, right underneath the menu screen, you'll find that there's a latch. And what you're going to do is you're going to shift that latch to the right, and then you can access the battery tray behind it. And pretty much you can just switch out those batteries right there. And then to put it back in, you'll just put it back into the slot and push up until you hear a click sound. So once the batteries are all situated, you're going to then move on to the SD card. And pretty much you can access the SD card from the side, the same side that you open the camera face from. And you'll just push on it until it pops out, and then you'll remove it and immediately move it into your organized tackle box. The reason why we put it in the tackle box is because this helps organize and make sure that we always put our old SD cards on one side and the fresh SD cards on the other side. And then once you have already put your old one in, you'll want to then place the new one into the camera unit by pushing on it until you hear a small clicking sound. Okay, so once you've changed the batteries, if that needed to happen, and you also took out the SD cards, you're going to then turn the camera unit back on and lock it up before you leave. So basically what you do for that is on the switch over here, you'll turn the camera unit back on. The menu will turn orange. You'll look at the battery life once again and record it. This is especially important to remember is when you change the batteries because it doesn't always start at 100%. And you'll then hit the enter button, which will have the menu screen start to flash a ready with a star. You'll then shut the camera face and latch it shut and hear the two snaps. You'll then grab your security cable. You'll place that on the lock next, and then shut the camera, the security box, and latch the lock. Then you want to remove the keys from the unit and immediately place it onto your person or onto your backpack. I like to place it on my belt loop because then I always know it's right there.
Go ahead.
Before you leave the camera station unit, you want to make sure that there are some security steps that are properly set in place. And one of those being the security cable. Now this is the main reason that actually keeps the camera there, so vandals or theft doesn't occur. It helps minimize that. You want to make sure that the cable is looped in on itself. So basically that means that you'll see one loop go through it, and then this other loop is actually sandwiched between the back and the front panels of the security box. And those are important because if that's not in between there, then it's not actually secure. Another part that you might notice is that some of these camera stations will have some sticks attached to the camera as well. And this is just helping with the tilt, the proper tilt that we need to see the bobcats or any other carnivores that we're looking for and wanting to record. And there's also a strap back here, and you want to make sure that that is properly tight, but not too tight or else this could tilt this camera back up. Okay, so before I leave the camera station, I trigger it once more. Kind of similar to when we triggered it when we came up to the camera in the beginning. I like to kick in front of it, give it a thumbs up, or move on. But pretty much you're going to take note of the time that you trigger the camera. You're going to double check that you have your keys with you, and then walk away and record that time. It's really important to know when the camera was recorded for both triggering and for when shutting it off.